Welcome to another ultimate ZONEofTECH camera comparison between the iPhone XS and this time the Pixel 2, the Google Pixel 2 XL. Now, I know the Pixel 3 is coming out very soon. It's actually going to be announced tomorrow. So yeah, I'll be doing another ultimate camera comparison between the iPhone XS and the Pixel 3 XL as soon as the 3 XL is out. So definitely subscribe and enable notifications if you want to see that video as soon as that video is out, which should be really soon. So here's the thing, the Pixel 2 already had a stunning camera. In many ways, it was better than the iPhone X's camera, especially because of that image processing that Google had on this thing. So it would be interesting to see how it compares to this year's iPhone XS. Now, in my previous ultimate camera comparison, this one, I compared the iPhone XS Max and the iPhone X, video link in the description in case you haven't seen that. And I've also done the video before, which was the ultimate camera comparison between the iPhone XS Max and the Note 9. So definitely check those videos out if you want to see how the XS compares to different smartphones. But in this one, I'll be testing pretty much everything you can think of when it comes to the camera of these two phones. So I'll be doing over 20 plus individual test categories, from general photography to smart HDR comparison, macro shots, zoom shots, microphone tests, front HDR, front portrait mode and back portrait mode, bitrate comparison, slow motion, time-lapse, panorama, autofocusing speeds. So yeah, this video is going to be crazy just like the other one. So get some snacks ready, sit back, relax, and let's have a look which one has a better camera and how much better is it actually over, the other one. And we're going to start this off with some HDR shots taken with the back-facing camera. So this first one is actually a pretty general shot, and they look pretty good. Both of them look actually really good. We get a lot of detail and exposure is similar on both the images. Now the XS exposes beyond the trees on the right better, as well as the sky is brighter and the water is also brighter with greater saturation on the XS, whereas the Pixel 2 XL is comparable, not falling down in any major ways and coming very close. Next up we have this shot of this building, which is really reflective, so this is a really good HDR shot to show. So in this one we can immediately tell that the iPhone XS has a much brighter image with better dynamic range. The middle doorway is actually a clear difference between the two. This one is very dark and noisy on the Pixel 2 compared to the iPhone XS, and the iPhone XS is overall better exposed, sharper, and has an overall significantly better image. Next up we have this gazebo shot, the famous gazebo that I keep using in pretty much all the camera comparisons, and in this one the Pixel 2 has significantly worse dynamic range than the iPhone XS. So if you look at the rooftop of this building, even the buildings on the back, the iPhone XS does have more detail in the darker areas of the frame and handles the exposure on the top golden ball, so to say, far better. This is where we can see how much better the dynamic range is on the iPhone XS versus the Pixel 2. And finally, we also have a close-up HDR, so this is a pretty tricky one. So here, the detail in the lower bricks is far better on the iPhone XS. The Pixel 2 seems to have some similar issues to all the other phones that we compared with in the previous videos. The Pixel 2 shot is far muddier and noisier, and if you take a look at above the wall, the iPhone XS shot is brighter and sharper in general, so you can see a very big difference if you take a look at that art feature, that brown art, that's brighter and much sharper on the iPhone XS versus the Pixel. Next up we have the macro shots, and in this one, this was taken by the way with the main module, not the zoom module, and I was trying to take this as closely as possible to the actual subject, and here, the images are actually very similar. The iPhone XS has better exposure, as well as sharpness. If you take a look at the letters, the Pixel 2 has darker shadows and brighter reflections, which is clearly obvious on the right-hand side of the image, and yeah, the left is quite a bit overexposed. Now the scuffed up area on the top right of the bolt is clearly sharper on the iPhone XS, so yeah, overall in this case the iPhone XS produced a much better image than the Pixel 2 once again. So what about some zoom shots? So the Pixel 2 doesn't have optical zoom because it doesn't have two modules on the back-facing camera, just a single module, so I zoomed in digitally, and it's pretty interesting to see how big of a difference do we actually get with the optical zoom that we have on the iPhone XS Max, or iPhone XS. And taking a look at the color temperature, take a look at how warm the Pixel 2 is and how blue and cold the XS is. The Pixel 2 has a large overexposed area on the right-hand side of the image, but interesting enough, this is yellow, overexposed yellow instead of bright white. That's quite strange. And then the buoy itself is much noisier, and the detail in the water at the top of the image is retained in the iPhone XS shots. Overall, again, clear improvement seen in the iPhone XS image. Next up we have another zoom shot, this time with this building, and here the Pixel 2 image is significantly noisier in almost every area. The glass front and the dark left-hand side of the image are clearly fuzzier and lack all the sharpness that the iPhone XS has achieved. The very bright frame of the building is also blown out on the Pixel 2, with the lines and the edges being far clearer on the XS. So what about some video taken with the back-facing camera? Well, here we have the Pixel 2. I've shot this in 4K 30 on the Pixel 2 and 4K 60 on the iPhone XS Max, because the iPhone XS Max can do 4K at 60 frames per second. And in terms of the actual bitrate, we have 103 megabits per second on the XS Max versus 48 megabits per second on the Pixel 2 XL, which kind of makes sense because you get double the frame rate on the XS. And here we have quite some different colors on both. So the iPhone XS is more natural. The Pixel 2 XL is making blues look a bit greener. If you take a look at the water, that's quite green. Now in terms of the saturation, it's higher on the Pixel 2, and the details, they lack sharpness and strong edges that we have on the iPhone XS. Also, interesting enough, the iPhone XS has a noticeably wider angle than the Pixel 2, and overall both produce a pretty good quality image, decent video with decent sharpness and dynamic range, but the Pixel 2's colors are a bit too unnatural. So now let's test the HDR with a back-facing camera in video. So Apple said that with the iPhone XS Max and the iPhone XS and also the iPhone XR, if you shoot in 4K 30 frames per second, you actually get higher dynamic range. So yeah, 4K 30 on both in this test. And here we have the same problem as before in terms of the colors on the Pixel 2. They look a bit too unnatural. Despite this, the sky and the water are duller on the Pixel 2. The iPhone XS has produced a clearer, more natural video, whereas the Pixel 2 falls down on brightness and color reproduction quite a bit. So the horizon is darker on the Pixel, even though the sky is also darker. So the iPhone definitely takes this one a lot of improvement over the previous test in terms of dynamic range, however. So what about some stabilization tests? So which one is more stable when recording video? Both of them feature optical image stabilization, and when walking, focusing on the stabilization alone, the Pixel 2 is incredibly smooth. I mean, take a look at this. It's like I've been using it on a gimbal, but I was actually not. Now, the iPhone XS allows for clearer video when walking. The Pixel 2 has reduced the movement to almost zero. However, the quality of the video is clearly better on the XS, with the same sharpness and natural colors from the previous tests. Now, when running, both lack the stabilization to produce a high quality video. So both of them are pretty bad. The Pixel 2 is slightly clearer, but realistically neither of them is good enough in terms of stabilization to actually use in a quality video when you're running. So what about the autofocusing speed? Which one can focus faster? Well, both of them focus in similar times, but the iPhone XS's focus transition is smoother, resulting in a bit of a nicer video. Both have no problems in terms of, focusing faster and focus accuracy. Both are really similar, making it pretty hard to choose between the two, apart from the transition smoothness. Now moving on to some low light shots taken with a back-facing camera. In this first one, we have quite a few buildings, we have a river, we have a bridge, so quite a lot of elements in this shot. And here, both of them produce decent exposure, decent sharpness. However, the Pixel 2 falls down in certain areas of the image, such as the noise. The noise is really bad on the Pixel. And now, if you take a look at the building on the left, here the noise is quite severe on the Pixel. Another area is the middle building, where the Pixel produces little detail and lots of noise compared to the XS. However, one area in which the Pixel actually beat the iPhone XS in terms of this image was the office building with the blue windows. This is actually clearer and has less noise on the Pixel versus the iPhone XS. Next up, we have this image of this nuke. Yes, this is an actual nuke. And the Pixel has more noise in multiple areas compared to the iPhone XS, with the back of the bomb being really fuzzy with softer edges on the Pixel. Now, another area is the front of the stand where the bomb is on, where the noise is far more evident on the Pixel again. Now, a big difference is the handling of the text on the right, with the Pixel 2 actually retaining more detail than the XS, as more text is possible to read. Now, in this next image, there's actually a really big difference here. So the Pixel 2 has produced a much more pleasing to the eye image with great colors and overall brightness. Now, keep in mind that the image actually looked more similar in real life to the way it looked on the iPhone XS, but the Pixel 2 one, it looks much better overall. The noise is strong on both. The Pixel 2 did produce brighter plants, but it also makes the noise a bit more evident. But the building is sharp on both, the iPhone XS being a bit sharper and clearer if you take a look at inside the apartments, inside the windows. And now in this next one, we have some really good images on both, very similar in terms of the sharpness and the exposure given the lighting. The grass and the leaves are really sharp on both. The iPhone XS actually shows a bit more noise on the leaf to the left of the plant, for example. The darkness cast by the light is identical on both, and the path is brighter on the Pixel. The XS managed to actually keep the light bulb not blown out in the shot, which is quite impressive. But yeah, overall, very good shots on both. Next up, we have low light with a flash this time. So in this one, we have quite a lot of good areas and bad areas on both images. So the iPhone XS has better sharpness, the grass and the leaves are much clearer than the Pixel 2. However, the Pixel 2 is better when it comes to the exposure of the light on the left. So the exposure is pretty good on the Pixel 2. The Pixel 2 also has a warmer image when compared to the more cooler one that we have on the XS. But yeah, the leaves look more natural on the Pixel 2 when compared to the iPhone XS's over-sharpened edges. I think the iPhone XS over-sharpened those leaves a bit too much than the Pixel. So in this case, I think the Pixel 2 is actually much better than the iPhone XS. Next up, we have a zoom shot taken with the back-facing camera in low light. So in this case, keep in mind that the Pixel 2 doesn't have optical zoom, so I'm just digitally zooming in, but it was quite interesting to see, even in low light, if we get the same difference as in daytime. And overall, they're really similar, but if you zoom in, the mechanism on the wheel is way noisier on the Pixel 2 versus the iPhone XS. So yeah, overall the image is quite poor on the Pixel. The iPhone XS is better in pretty much every way, but keep in mind, again, iPhone XS has optical zoom, whereas the Pixel 2 is just using digital zoom for this. So what about video taken with the back-facing camera in low light? Well, wow, this one, take a look at that noise on the Pixel 2. It is very, very strong and evident in pretty much every area of the video. The path is a world apart on both, with the iPhone XS being clear by comparison. If you take a look at the lights are blown out on the Pixel and actually perfectly visible and exposed perfectly on the iPhone XS versus the Pixel. This was also shot in 4K 30, by the way, on both. Moving on to the front-facing camera, in this case, the Pixel 2 is darker and shows much harsher shadows, but produces natural colors on the face and the shirt. However, it's just too processed, too sharp, especially if you take a look at my skin. So the background is also darker on the Pixel 2, resulting in what looks like a cloudy day, whereas in real life it was actually a really sunny day, similar to what it looks like on the iPhone XS. But the iPhone XS saturated my face a bit too strong. I look like a peach. Yeah, way too orange. And moving on to a front-facing HDR shot, in this one, well, a lot of differences between those two images. Firstly, the sky is better exposed on the iPhone XS with more blue and less overexposed areas. The sharpness is pretty much the same on both with no complaints for either. The colors would be an interesting comparison because my shirt was actually black. It was literally this shirt. And in the image on the iPhone XS, it looks blue. It's actually blue and my hair is a bit too bright. So yeah, in terms of the color, the Pixel 2 XL takes this one. In terms of the exposure, the iPhone XS takes this one. Okay, so this is a front-facing camera test between the iPhone XS Max and the Google Pixel 2 XL, not a Pixel 3 because that one isn't out yet. But yeah, take a look at the audio. Which one do you think sounds better? So this is the iPhone XS Max, this is the audio, and now this is the audio coming from the Pixel 2 XL. Then take a look at my shirt. Which one exposes it better? Take a look at the background, the HDR processing, and all that. And yeah, which one do you think has a better front-facing camera when it comes to video? And then a front-facing shot in low light. This one is really, really bad on both. The Pixel 2 being marginally brighter and having some color in the sky and water, whereas the iPhone XS is a bit too flat. Both of them are really noisy and soft. The Pixel 2 is a bit clearer, a tiny bit, so I wouldn't really use any of these images, to be honest, but the Pixel 2 is a bit better. And now we have the same thing, but this time with a front-facing flash, or, you know, the retina flash, or the display brightness. This one is very grainy and fuzzy on the iPhone XS, lacking any clear details and making me look like I'm made out of clay. Whereas, trust me, I'm not, guys. I'm not made of clay, just wood. But yeah, Pixel 2 produces a surprisingly good image here with relatively sharp details such as the hair and the eyebrows. The flash is coming from the screen, keep this in mind. But yeah, the Pixel 2 is brighter. However, the display of the Pixel 2 wasn't really brighter. It just lit up more than the iPhone XS. Okay, so this is a front-facing camera test between the iPhone XS Max and the Google Pixel 2, not the 3 because the 3 isn't out yet, XL. Now, the XS Max can actually do 1080p 60 video, and there's no option to disable that. So the Pixel 2 might actually look better in low light. Let me know which one do you think looks better. And also take a look at, obviously, the noise and how much more the Pixel 2 XL can get into the frame compared to the iPhone XS Max. Moving on to the portrait mode taken with a front-facing camera, both of them produce good images but also fall down in the same areas. So the left-hand side of my glasses, for example, is quite bad on both. It's a bit worse on the Pixel with the frame being blurred. And the iPhone XS Max actually blurs out the shirt in unnecessary areas such as the buttons and the shoulders. Now, one detail that is down to preference is how sharp the mask on a phone is. And on the Pixel is really, really sharp. The iPhone is actually trying to create an actual depth mask. But yeah, the edge detection is a bit too strong on the Pixel and produces a very clean-cut, photoshopped image, so to say. But you keep in mind that the iPhone is using both software and hardware for the front-facing camera, the depth masking, whereas the Pixel is just using software. So Pixel 2 deserves more praise than than it should. Now moving on to the back-facing camera portrait mode, looking at the masking, the Pixel 2 is really good. The iPhone XS has more errors on the left shoulder and leaves some water in focus on the bottom left. However, those are not visible on the Pixel 2. When it comes to the actual colors, the iPhone XS has a brighter and overall nicer image. Keep in mind that it was a really sunny day when this was taken. The Pixel 2 is dark and contrasty with heavy shadows and a slightly pale skin tone. However, the Pixel 2 has nailed the shirt color, reproducing it correctly. Moving on to the panorama shots, the iPhone XS took a 15.6 megabytes image and 61 megapixels in size. The Pixel 2 XL took 6.8 megabytes and 33 megapixels in size, so quite a big difference between the two. But also take a look at how much more the iPhone XS got in the actual shot versus the Pixel 2. Keep in mind that this was done with a stock camera app on both, and the panorama capturing technique is a bit different on both of these phones. Now, both of them were pretty good overall. The Pixel 2 had a bit more mistakes, so if you take a look at a rail in the middle, it messed up quite a bit there, and this actually transferred to the buildings above. Now, if you take a look at the color, the trees, the sky, it's pretty similar on both of these phones. The exposure is better on the iPhone XS. If you take a look at that building with the 11, now sharpness is strong on the iPhone XS. It's a bit too strong. It looks like it's even sharper than a Samsung phone, so it's way too strong, making the Pixel's softer image a bit more natural and pleasing to the eye. Moving on to the slow motion shots, the Pixel 2 took a 720p 240 frames per second slow motion, whereas the iPhone XS did 1080p at 240 frames per second. So yeah, the Pixel 2 XL is a bit lower res. It's even lower than 720p, and the iPhone XS looks like 480p. But yeah, both of them capture sound when slowed down, so that's good. However, the iPhone XS is a bit sharper and clearer than the Pixel, mostly because of the resolution. So the path, the bridge, and the water, they appear clearer on the iPhone XS. And also they have less noise than compared to the Pixel. And then when it comes to the actual time-lapse, the iPhone XS takes a 1080p 30 frames per second time-lapse, which is quite bad. But the Pixel 2 takes an even worse one, as in it cannot really take a time-lapse. Please, Apple, Samsung, Google especially, focus on the time-lapse, because that's an amazing thing to do with a camera. And everyone, I don't know, no one really focuses on time-lapses. The resolution is really bad, frame rate is really bad, mostly the resolution and the bit rate. And the Pixel 3 cannot even do that, the Pixel 2 from the stock camera app. Okay, so as a conclusion, the Pixel 2 was long hailed as the king of smartphone cameras, and it does indeed have a really good camera. However, the iPhone XS is better in every single way. Even in low light, the shots were actually much better than the Pixel 2. Now, I was honestly expecting the Pixel 2 to win in terms of low light shots. Now, the Pixel 3 will be coming out very soon. So I'll be doing another ultimate camera comparison between the 3XL and the iPhone XS Max. So definitely subscribe and notifications if you're new to the channel by tapping on that bell icon for more insanely detailed tech videos like this one. This one took quite a number of days to make, so yeah, all of your feedback is really appreciated. So yeah, let me know in the comments what camera comparisons should I do next, by the way, and check out the previous videos, the previous iPhone XS Max versus the iPhone X, and also the iPhone XS Max versus the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like to let me know. Join the Zone for supporting the channel, and you also get some pretty cool exclusive perks as well. But yeah, this has been pretty much it. Stay tuned for some really awesome videos this week incoming. Definitely keep an eye on the channel. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next video. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.